Great. Well, hey, it's May 5th. Welcome, everybody. You know what May 5th is, at least in some places, right? I don't know that you celebrate that, but I will welcome you all to the May 2026 ICA meeting. Um, it's great that everybody has found a way to be here today. Like I said, Patrick is in Evanston or on his way to Evanston or on his way back from Evanston or something Evanston oriented. That probably speaks to where Marshall may be as well, although it is Marshall's birthday, so we can put on the record happy birthday to our director-elect Marshall. Um, Gosh, I mean, you're always able to go back and review the past discussions that we've had. They're in two places now. They're on the Zones 3334 YouTube channel. They are sorted out by playlist, and the monthly ICAs has its own little category. And we've also found a way for that to be filtered into the Zones website. So I encourage you to go back and look at those if you feel like that you may have missed something in recent opportunities. Just to give you a brief recap of what April looked like, we talked about some statistics, especially the ones that show that um, while there are newly created clubs that are unable to sustain viability for whatever reason, it's still the vast majority of the clubs that have dissolved this Rotary year that are the ones that have been around for a while, the standalone ones. So with that in mind, we talked about trying to find ways to enjoy a greater net, and not only necessarily by gaining new members, but really focusing our efforts on losing less, um, and how that all lends towards nurturing sustained clubs. And perhaps most importantly, in April, we decided as a group that it does very little to recognize that you have a problem and do nothing. Say something needs done about it, but do nothing. We need to figure out how we're going to do something about it. And that led to, really focusing on whether we feel that we have the best people with the most bandwidth and energy to seek out and promote the opportunities. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean that in, sometimes the person with the brightest idea is not necessarily the one with the biggest name tag. And we need to be mindful of that as we move forward and watch who it is that's involved in our efforts. And we encouraged everybody to spread the word about the value of scheduling a step one in the club creation app. That's been pretty busy. I've had my fair share of those. Al, I imagine you have too. The other members of that team that are on this call, I see the calendar invites fly. I don't keep track of them, but I have been in the app lately, and there's lots going on. So with that said, for the month of May, again, I think we can kind of pick up where we left off. And let's do this first, especially for my benefit, not being able to attend last weekend. Most of y'all, if not all of you, just returned from the district learning seminar in Richmond, right? Anybody want to share what maybe their most memorable or significant takeaways were from spending those 2 days together at DLS? Okay,
I
nobody
was gonna say
learned anything.
everybody was
All right,
highly
I'll be
motivated,
there. You
it looks like Peter wanted to say something more specific, but it was a very energized group of people.
Yeah, I thought,
energized in what way, Mike? Were they just
Well, they
everybody
were
was happy to be together?
very focused on the task at hand, the area that they were focused on. There was a lot of communication in the hallway between sessions, uh, and Saturday morning I thought was a home run by district. That was hugely helpful after, and doing it at unlike uh, maybe at some previous zone summits, to have it at the end of discussions at, Saturday morning after people that had a full day in their area of choice or expertise to come together as a district. And so it really put an emphasis for next year on having a lot of people from each district. Our district had nine. We had some fabulous discussions. Another district had one person, and I guess, they had a lot of talking to themselves. So it really put a premium on having a lot of people from the district there. I think we had a much richer discussion because of that.
That's great. Peter, go ahead, please. And Chris
yeah.
will come to you.
Well, for first off, one thing I liked about this one was they took a more holistic view the whole way through. In the past ones, it's always been very stovepiped. And that was when the membership guys get up there, the only thing that mattered was membership. When the foundation guys got up there, the only thing that mattered was foundation. This one, it was very much more crossing the lines and how do we work together because everything builds on each other, which is one of the things I've been asking for in the past because it's not stovepiped. And so I thought that was great. And then the thing that Mike just mentioned, that last day, my district, we managed to get 18 people down there. So
Wow.
last day, the only thing was 18 may have been a little bit too many, but as far as for the last day, but it was great. It was working together, and the sheet they gave us to fill out kind of it was following the Rotary impact statements, coming up with an idea and what's the action that we're going to take moving forward before we left. So I thought that was outstanding. The only thing that could have been a little bit better because we were so much, we moved to another room because we couldn't hear each other talking because of all the noise in the room. But the
Hmm.
way it was a great session.
I know in recent years past, there was a push by the coordinators to really collaborate and put something together that showed how the three prime components of traditional Rotaryisms go together. And I heard you say that it was less stovepiped. Was it different, Peter, in your mind this
Yeah,
year
that's what
compared to
I'm
what
saying.
they
This one
tried
was. They
before?
finally got it where when they're talking before, when you had sessions. I mean, like in uh, the general sessions, you had foundation got up there. When you listen to the guys talk about foundation, foundation was the only thing that mattered. They were the most important thing. Everything else, didn't matter. It fall in place. The foundation was done. It membership got up there, it was the same thing. The only thing that mattered was membership. If you followed membership, everything else would take care of itself on down the road. This one, to me, they started bringing all of them together and how could they support others? How could other ones support them? That type of thing where, because the one thing I asked for, okay, you're saying this, so how we bring these things together? That's what we need help on. And that's what, to me, they did this time, especially then following at the end, bring that session where you bring the people together, within the district and they've been to the different sessions, bringing them together. Plus the general sessions also were doing that, talking about how the three areas could interface, like saying that the kind of holistic view as opposed to just, we're
I
only.
think the other thing Saturday morning was actually created an 11 by 17 discussion tool that led us
Yes.
through a step-by-step process that I thought worked incredibly well. In our district, kind of violated the process. We went off and had our own discussions, but it provided structure and something to talk within for each of those areas, and it combined all three areas very nicely. But having a structured discussion tool and having sort of you got this much time for this and then we're moving on to that. I thought that made the conversations a lot higher quality.
Yep.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, Peter, I think you're going to see. I think everybody's going to see a move toward that, a very intentional move. I can tell you that this month's Foundation Zone webinar is going to be delivered in part by folks that aren't necessarily traditional minded foundation people. There's going to be an aspect of how that pertains to membership and vice versa, and I think there's some plans to do that with public image as well. So not only does it bring a different voice, but maybe a different perspective, and really one that does hopefully a great job about putting all those things together so that you can see how they fit. And Terry Weaver taught us that all at a very young age that if you fix membership, everything else is going to be okay. And there's still a lot of truth to that, but at the same time there's you can focus on all those things and how they go together at once, whether you use the action plan and how they go together or otherwise. And I think that these incoming governor classes are going to start to see some of that flavor sprinkled in with the curriculum, not necessarily from what RI provides in its prescribed curriculum, but certainly when you add some of that regional flavor to it, and that being a big priority not only of the coordinators, but of our directors and the director-elect and whoever it may be that follows Marshall, I'm sure is paying attention as
Mhm.
well. So I
Well,
appreciate you both adding that.
And I would also say that with membership growth still being obviously a huge priority, I would say the real simple way that I think about it is public image is the how and the foundation is the why. And it makes a little more sense when
Right
you put it
on.
in that context.
Yeah,
There's
that's a
other
good point,
whys,
Mike.
but thinking of one as a how and the other as a why is an easy way to put those together.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. Chris, thank you for your patience.
No, not at all, not at all. I thought from the very beginning, I think Marshall kind of set the tone, and he gave us a perspective of everything through a different lens. It wasn't the same old, same old. Marshall came up and he gave us a fresh perspective of how this all works. But then again, there was also always from probably Friday morning when we first started, how the interdependencies between the disciplines work. You know, how does membership marry with public image? How does public image marry with foundation? And it was refreshing to see it because it wasn't just we're the big kids on the block, we're the 600-pound gorilla. It was we are all 600-pound gorillas and we share a room together. So it was good to see that and to hear the discussions that were going on and the perspectives from the leadership.
Great. Well, let's expand on that a little bit. And you can either use some of the examples that we've already shared, or you may have a completely different answer to this. But did anybody care to share with the group what that something or things were that you gained by being there that believe will help you drive your efforts throughout the remainder of this year as well as transitioning into the next? I mean, any good tips or tricks or ideas or things that you hope to see your district explore and maybe give a shot at?
Sean, what we're doing is, I mean, what I'm doing, and I've said this before, uh, I'm trying to, one of my big pushes is breaking the clubs out of their club silos. And what I mean by that is too many times in our district, the club members don't know anything outside their club, literally. And maybe one or two do, but when you go down there and you start talking about the district or something, they kind of look like, huh? What's that? And so what I'm encouraging is joint multi-club projects, whether it be socials, whether it be meetings, going out. And I'm going to try and do a couple of district level. I've got one of my people is a special projects officer to go talk to the area governors and the clubs. You have the area governors talk with the clubs to come up with a project that they can all get together on a Saturday. And we'll try and put some district money in, but one on it, basically on either end of the district. And the idea is if we can get literally maybe 10 clubs doing this project and would tie all of this stuff in, because if we can get 10 clubs and if they're working with their communities to bring like a community leader in to talk and say a few words, maybe we can get some publicity too then for this big project. If all the clubs have their banners out there for the project. So, but again, and that will then increase their clubs networking. You know, the people, it just amazes me that when they just come to a district conference, they're kind of amazed, like, gee, this is a lot. Rotary's bigger than I thought. And this is nothing if you go to the international conference. But that's how stovepiped it is. People just, they're in their little cubicle and they don't know what's outside of it. And they're not looking. And somehow we've got to get them excited to want to get outside and meet the other people and find out all these other people are resources for them. So things like that. I mean,
Good.
Well,
Great.
I would totally agree. In all the years I've taught, facilitated RLI, that's been the whole thing. Everybody knows their club culture, but they don't know Rotary. And once they know Rotary, better things happen. But if you're stuck in that club culture, or at least don't get some cross-pollination with other clubs
yeah.
or district, or even going to the international convention, most people have no clue what they're a part of.
And part of the risk of just being so stuck in a club culture, certainly our club, and I guess most clubs, is there's a certain tempest in a teapot kind of attitude with some people is like they get so wound up about the smallest things because that's their world. They don't want to go beyond that world, but that's a very important world to them, and they get really caught up in that, probably to an unnecessary degree.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I had our my home club's annual fundraiser was this past Saturday, but I had a picture of this collaborative session with all the other 5 people from the district that were working around a table, and from the comments that you folks have made, and the past events that I've attended in Richmond, that one I see so much more value in that. We heard it at IA DGE's, the concept of collaboration, and Peter talked about that. That was a message. That was a clear message that came out of that event this past year. And similar to what Peter's talking about, I'm trying some new things to try to enhance that. I'm even toying with the idea, and there's some angst to it, but our club's annual fundraiser is pretty successful. We generally generate, well, last year was a record year. We had $95,000 we were able to rotate back into the community or to a couple of RI projects. But we're a club of 12, and as every club knows, not everybody contributes the same amount towards those things. So it's pretty, it's a hell of a lot of work, and we rely a lot on several hundred volunteers. So I'm toying with the idea of, if we're going to collaborate, we can't make it any bigger. It would kill us. But if we started working with another club, and now all of a sudden, instead of us getting $30,000 worth of sponsors, but them we're able to get 60. And instead of doing 14,000 ducks down the river, can we all of a sudden do 20 or 24 at $7 a duck net, if you will? And then all of a sudden this thing gets massive, but the impact on the local community also gets equally as massive. So I'm glad that we're talking like this, and I've seen some other things. I like the idea. Wouldn't it be cool if we had a district-wide Rotary service or a zone-wide Rotary service month where we do something in the zone focused towards a particular cause, maybe CART or maybe Polio Plus or whatever, and really got some incredible visibility that community can start to really learn what Rotary is all about. So I'm sorry I missed that because I agree with what some folks have said. You go to these things and you go to as a DG, you kind of bounce around and pick out different topics. PIPR, go over here and hit this one on foundation. But I could see where if a foundation person is there for a day and a half getting the same old Kool-Aid, it's like, okay, are we really learning much, or are we just, repeating? So I like that we're going that direction.
One advantage of the set. Go ahead.
No, Michael, go ahead.
One advantage of the Saturday morning group, and Richmond is the only time where this group of people is together in one room at the same time, unless they do it intentionally at the district level, is you had the breadth of foundation membership and PI in a district, but you also had the depth of the DG chain there. And I think that was very important to have that breadth and depth of the top people in the district. And you don't get that at the Zone Summit. You don't get it really anywhere else. And to have it in a structured way like that, where someone was guiding us along, I thought was incredibly valuable.
Well, let's take all that and pivot back towards membership, only because I guess this is kind of a new things created oriented call or intended to be. For those of you who are either in clubs or working with clubs that are trying to expand or strengthen or just be better in general overall, is there any of those things that can be used in those terms to finish this year strong? I mean, before we get into the statistics of maybe where the various districts are with club creation app and the steps in it, are there things that you can do to still be able to move the needle in some sort of meaningful way, or at least get things teed up so that after that dreaded arbitrary date of July 1, there are things already in the hopper that can be used to foster membership growth?
Well, I hate to go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
Yeah, um, I think so, Sean, because from my perspective, I spent most of the time in the membership sessions. And
Sure.
what I thought was great was they were extremely well done from the standpoint of encouraging audience participation. And there were a lot of ideas and a lot of comments made by various people from various districts about how they're doing things differently and how they're structuring themselves to for retention, for engagement, as well as recruitment, as well as new clubs. So I think individuals that sat into those, and I see some of the faces on the screen, I think if they heard the same things I did, there were a lot of ideas that you could take back to your district, just maybe not so much for this year, but forming new plans for next year.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
you're right. To
that's the
grow.
thing that I kind of think as well is, all right, here we are. We just had this thing beginning of May. Incoming presidents are, I don't know about the other districts, but they're putting together their club plans that are due at the end of this month. Realistically, Sean, I just don't know that we had a lot of good ideas, but I think they're ideas that are going to be more applicable towards what are we going to do different next year. I'm just afraid at this point in time, you've got existing presidents whose minds are starting to collapse, and the other ones are thinking, okay, I've got to put all this stuff together and figure out. And their brains are about ready to explode between that and grants, district grants that have to be in at the end of April, and now they got to put these plans together. I'm just afraid that it's not something that we're going to be able to do anything significant for the remainder of this year, but hopefully come out with some new ways of approaching things going into next year that will make things happen faster, sooner.
Right.
And I agree with all of that.
Right.
And I think more is your district leadership, if they were paying attention, your DGEs and membership chairs from the perspective of membership. They're the ones that could be taking a lot of information and then passing it on to the clubs and encouraging the clubs to do some of these things differently. But I think more so from my perspective was, what can the district be doing differently?
Yeah. I think that's, if there's a key takeaway, is that very thing. We've been hearing a lot about this continuity of leadership. All right, so what are we going to start doing now, but maybe gain some momentum that you can pass the baton to the incoming DGE. Mm-hmm. So those things I'm hoping comes out of this, instead of, just like, like you said, Peter, we go to these meetings and we're siloed. Our districts are siloed. What are we doing to break our district? If we come back to our districts and we operate in silos, even though we tried to have a learning session through collaboration, it's all for naught. And so I think that's that. And like Ken is saying, is what are the districts going to be doing to really foster this? Membership is number one. I'm not going to try to blow my own horn here, but on the 18th of this month, I've got every committee chair in the district on a Zoom. Well, as those that are available. And I call them the Power Five. You got membership, foundation, learning. You've got communications, which rolls in the PIPR, and then you've also got youth services, and then I've got all the specialty ones, CART and so forth and so on. I've asked them. This is no PowerPoints. One, tell everybody, what are you trying to do? What are your goals? Maybe a few key things that you're going to try to do and then second, or before that, I said, tell me how you fit into the 4 pillars of RI's action plan. Tell me what your plans are, and then what help do you need from other committees so that they start to actually understand how they interact. And I've even asked some, CART, tell me where you fit into this. We can go ahead and just do CART, but CART for the sake of CART, we're missing something. You're there because of why. And if that why is not strong enough, how do we strengthen it towards our top goals, which is membership, followed by foundation, and then I've got one for succession planning. So we got to try to get that conversation going sideways, and then we're going to have quarterly get backs togethers and how things going. Where do we need to work more together? How does this progress? So we're if we don't do that, if the districts just go back and I go visit the clubs and foundations doing their thing and memberships doing their thing, well, at the end of the day, everything that was done in Richmond this last week is interesting stuff, but it didn't help any.
I'll add on starting with why is really important. And what I've learned is that not every club wants to grow. A lot of clubs really have no interest in growing. They like their size. They had a few members, but that's okay. And so sometimes the why is we want to take on this big service project in the community, but we need another 15 people to pull that off. And so that might be the why for membership growth may not be the real why, but it may be what solves the problem of the real why. And so I think sometimes you have to take a step back from membership growth on that. One thing that I'll suggest Paul and I were 2 of the presenters for the final session in Richmond on new pathways. Paul knocked it out of the park, by the way, and did a fabulous job with that. And something that I suggested to the DGs, and I'll suggest to the DGEs here, is you could do a lot worse than adding a paragraph to your welcome letter that you'll probably send out in early July to everyone in the district that says something along the lines of, do you like to start new things? Or do you like being on the ground floor of things? Do you want to look back and say with pride that you started something? If so, reach out to me because we're looking for people that want to start new clubs. And why not ask every member of the district that question? I mean, for some reason we avoid asking every member of the district, are you that kind of person? Do you like to start new things? You might find a half a dozen people that just say, yeah, that's kind of my thing, is starting new things. Tell me more. And you might be surprised if you ask everybody in the district as part of your welcome letter.
Yeah, Mike, I would suggest on your original comment about, and you're right, not every club is going to say, well, I'm going to go out and try to grow membership. But as Sean had teed up earlier, a part of membership is retention. And if you don't have people excited about what you're doing, then they may leave. So everything relates to membership. It relates to, am I keeping my members because we're doing stuff they like to do? And that's a clear element of our membership action plan is, well, even Rotary's action plan. The third element is, are we engaging our members? So I think we have to, and I'm perfectly fine with not everybody being interested in starting a new club or going out and really doing some things to grow. But that club that I've got up in Fort Mills, it has a huge fundraiser for CART every year, and everybody loves it, and it's a great thing. That's, to me, is a membership because it gets people excited about being in that club. And if they can get, maybe they'll get other folks that say, hey, you do this stuff for CART. We could argue, well, why don't you do it for the foundation? But it's what they want to do. It's their club. It's their excitement. If they're excited, they're going to stick around. So, let's not muck with that because it's not my club. You're right. The culture of that another club might say, well, I'm not excited about that, but man, I love going over here and planting trees in these tree deserts around the Greenville County area, that kind of thing. I think it all relates to membership. That's just where my brain.
You you've heard the statistic, and we keep banging the drum. Um, 25 years ago, Rotary had 1.2 million members, and on average, 150,000 new people join every year. And now, 25 years later, after those 150,000 annual additions, we're still at 1.2 million members. So I don't know that we have an attraction problem, and I think that that's where Stephanie and others came into really bolstering the club culture aspect. That maybe we just have a retention problem. I'd like to think maybe that's part of the reason why our new things created numbers are down this year compared to last, because we are focusing more of our effort on keeping what we have or giving people reasons to stay, being focused on the health. And to your point, Eric, not so much about just going out and creating something new because you can. If that's not the solution, if that's using Mike's words, if that's not the why, then maybe it is that growth and its focus needs to be as much on losing less as it is in adding more. Does that make sense to everybody?
Sure.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and
part of
that
it.
kind of dovetails on something I want to share too is
Go ahead, Mark.
um, recently I was on a conference call in the district with various people, and I was trying to share with them about this new club creation thing, and everybody's absolutely clueless. And so I says, well, the people who's going to work with the clubs, club presidents, so on, is your area governor team or your assistant governor team. So I says, let's get me on to your next virtual call or however you want to do it, whether you're meeting in person. I says, I'll try to explain and educate, everybody on the whole new club creation thing. So as you're going to go into the new year, that you have some concept of what we're trying to do in the world of membership growth and alternative clubs, obviously. But
Right.
I mean, it's just apparent. It was apparent with me that the whole assistant governor team was really clueless on membership. I was shocked. I thought they would have some concept of it, but they didn't. So
Well, I
this
think
is
I
well,
I think it starts with the pets curriculum is 4 or 5 years behind on membership. It doesn't have any of this new information. But along club creation lines, we happen to have someone who's in the middle of using the club creation app who spoke very eloquently about what's going on in her club in Richmond. And I was wondering if I could put Paula on the spot to take a couple minutes since she was in step 3 of the club creation app and went in a completely different direction, but she's solving the original goal just in a very different manner. And with that, I would love to tee Paula up for a couple minutes on the club creation app since it is an ICA call.
Thank you, Mike, putting me on the spot. So I'm sure some of you heard the story when we were in Richmond. I had decided to use the Club Creation app for myself to make sure that I could speak about it properly when I spoke with other clubs. And I used my club as kind of like a guinea pig. And we had decided that we were going to move from add a companion club in the evening. And after spending, 30 minutes talking to Chris Jones, who I just happened to get, who's in my district when I took step 1, we decided that that was the way to go. And long story short, the evening, we were going to try an evening club because in the county that we live in, there are no evening clubs at all. And we tried that, and it was not anywhere near as successful that I thought it would be. And the next morning, we had a Discover Rotary meeting, and that did not go well either. Um, the conversation that happened after the meeting, though, was very enlightening because the people who are incoming presidents, the president-elect nominee, and other people that are very important in our club stated very directly that the reason why they did not bring a guest to the Discover Rotary meeting was because they were not happy with the club. And that's that underlying that nobody talked about. Nobody has ever said, we're not happy. They complain about, I don't like the food or blah, 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 but we have great speakers. Our attendance has been declining, but that's typical this time of the year. But the whole thing just kind of like came to like a boiling point, for lack of better words, and kind of spilled over that I'm not happy I don't want to bring a guest because it's not a good feeling when you walk in the room. Um, all these things that were just kind of below the surface bubbling that nobody ever said. So that was extremely enlightening. That came out of that couple of very stressful days. But going to Richmond, and listening to the speakers about, having your clubhouse in order. The original speaker, and I did not write her name down, but she talked about what house do you want to go to? The house with the lights on and the laughter and very welcoming, or do you want to go to the house that's dark and gloomy and all that kind of stuff? That hits home. Also, information that I got about retaining members through internal public image, the district challenge, just, challenge to action, the district team approach, all of these things I'm going to take now to my club, and we're going to try it again, and we're not going to give up. And I think we may wind up actually going from a Thursday morning breakfast club to a Wednesday evening club and being in a different location. And I think that we may actually retain our members as well as grow some and have some people join us. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the name you're looking for, Paula, is Cindy Kish. She's the Rotary membership coordinator in Zone 32. And just as a teaser, I will share with the group that she's going to be one of the presenters during this month's MAP call, the Membership Action Plan call, on Monday, the 11th. You'll have to tune in to find out why I know that. But yeah, I have a strong suspicion she's going to be part of that. So if it's
I'll add
something
a
you'd like to
little
hear
bit.
more about.
I'll add a little bit to Paula's story. So, the goal was to have an evening club, and it seemed that that's the direction that the club wants to go. And interestingly, there is another club that meets on Thursday morning at the same time, 4 miles from their club. So the two clubs 4 miles apart at the same time, same day. And there's a lot of people in her club. There's huge new communities being built. And what happened the night that didn't work out so well was it was they're having it at a brewery, which everyone loves, but they had a food truck there, a very popular food truck with 400 people in line. And by the time people got their food, basically the meeting was over. There's no point in having the meeting, but they pivoted and handed out flyers and talked to 400 people in the food truck line, which I thought was amazing, Paula, to take that and make it a positive. And quite frankly, that might be the new marketing tool. If you meet at the brewery on an ongoing basis, which seems like that's a good chance it'll happen, that anytime there's a popular food truck, that you're out there talking to people in the food truck line, and because they're in the food truck right next to the brewery. And so, I thought some real positives came out of something that seemed like a disaster at the time. But also the positive was maybe our club is what should be meeting in the evenings and not a companion club.
I would love to see somebody create the Rotary Club of Functional Alcoholism. I wouldn't have any problem with that at all. As long as they're doing something and they're happy about it, and nobody's going to jail. Why not?
Sponsored by Uber.
There you go. Well, let me take what I think I'm hearing everybody say and put it into terms of, keeping your foot on the gas between now and July 1st. Is there anybody that's close enough to having something put together by then? And if not, are you close enough that you can keep your foot on the gas and see it come to fruition soon after that arbitrary deadline? Eric, I see your hand. Go ahead. Do you want to share? You're muted, by the way. You're muted, sir.
I sent in an application a couple of weeks ago for a new companion club.
Great.
And I reached out to Carla, and she responded today that I should get a response next week. But we've got 12 new members, and this is at and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'm an advocate of this. This is at a 55 plus retirement community. 750 members. They're expanding, so within a couple of years, they'll be up to 1,000 residents. And these are folks that still want to be involved. And over half of these 12 people have been Rotarians, so they know what Rotary is. So yeah, I'm excited about this one because I'm hoping it eclipses my home club, which won't take much longer, and it grows into something that really serves a community that is just looking for ways of still being of value.
Mm-hmm.
That should
Paul,
come. We should have that down by the end of the month, is my guess.
That's great. That's great. Paul, did I see your hand go up too when I asked that question? Or not? No? Did I see somebody else's hand?
I'll speak for Deborah Dick Camillus, sorry, in 7710, because I'm in my ICA role working with several of the districts. I've been working with her, and she sent me an email saying she can't be here tonight, but she's got some strong interest in Durham's Carolina Preserve 55 plus Del Webb community. Exciting about them getting to the next level. Their membership chair is connected with Ann Matheson at the zone training about the 55 plus club that she started, and planning a call soon. I'll keep you posted. So she is actively working that 55 plus community as well in the Raleigh area.
That's great. Well, speaking of something that Mike said, let me throw this out there. Mike, you talked about polling your district, if you will, for lack of a better description, to try to explore finding that spark. Do any of you from your district or from the leadership team perspective or even from the club perspective, hopefully, know who that person is going to be at this point moving forward? And if you don't, do you have a plan in place that will allow you to do the kinds of things that Mike was talking about as far as finding out who that person is that can really get to where the rubber meets the road and shake the trees and see what falls out? Eric, you do?
Yeah, actually, we are struggling there, and I like that idea because I spoke with our district membership chair. He's talked to 4 people about becoming the district new club chair, and all of them said no. So he and I met a couple weeks ago for lunch and just kind of talked about, well, maybe we need to go out there and find somebody that's just interested in membership and groom them, work with them, not just say, go do it. And Mike's suggestion gives me a way to go do that is let's go out and just send a message throughout the district and see who's interested in creating something new and wants to be part of that and see what falls out. You've got 2,400 members. How many do we really know personally? Maybe 10. So I think I like that idea. I'm going to suggest it to our district membership chair that we do something like that.
Okay, so I'll tell you, years ago, before I was even in my club still has 2 PDGs, maybe even before they were district governors, who opened responsible for a fair number of clubs in our district, and one was just out there inviting fool. He was just talking to people all over the place, all the time about a new club. He was great with the gift of gab, but horrible with paperwork. But the other PDG was more the opposite, who came in. And so, we had 2 people, one who was fantastic with getting out there and getting the word out, and the other who closed the deal. So sometimes it's somebody, sharing responsibilities for ICA in a way that, one has one strength and the other has another strength.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. Anybody else have any plans in place? If not, I would like to ask an RI recon question, if you want to call it that. Anybody in your district seeing any kind of a measurable difference in RI asking that each district have its own new club development sub-chair person as a member of their committee? Al, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I've heard from district leadership that they've received communications from RI that they've got a few roles that are mandatory to be filled. So
So for those districts that have that person as part of their district membership team, do you see the fruits of any effort that there may be as a result of having that person that focuses on just that aspect of membership? No, not
I
so
got I
much,
got a
maybe.
Paula.
I do.
Well, you've had a Paula,
Yeah, but I can tell you, I mean, we every month we're on our AG call. Mike and I are always on there, and and the rest of the team as well. Um, and the ask is always, anyone can reach out to any of us at any time. And I have never had anyone call to ask me any questions whatsoever.
you mean from
Um,
an AG, Paula, or just
from
in
an
general?
from an AG, or even if they go back to their clubs and say, this is something new, we need to, if you're interested, or if you think your club might be wanting to expand, or if you want to talk about a refresh, what can we help you with? And this is who you should call. I have not had a club president nor an AG reach out. So I don't know if the approach coming from the AGs, of course, they're very important and we need to have the AGs get the message out, but I'm wondering if it needs to be a more personal approach of calling. Not that you want to call 52 clubs and club presidents, but an email from personal, one-on-one saying, hey, I'm here can I be of assistance or whatever,
Mhm.
just to let them know, because I'm not
Sure.
sure how many of our club presidents know that the position even exists.
Well, let me share. I'd hate not to nerd out when I'm given the opportunity to do that. Let me share with you a little bit of statistical data, at least that was accurate as of about a week ago when the team met to prepare for tonight's call. If you go into the Club Creation Team app, you will find something very similar to the fact that zone wide we have chartered 11 new clubs that have yielded 161 new members. But more encouraging than that is the fact that there are 125 leads within the zone. There are 6 step 1s, there are 16 step 2s, there are 14 step 3s, and Eric, this might be yours, I don't remember. There was one in step 4, which is just waiting for the green light to be able to make the announcement that there's something new going on. Could that not be the low hanging fruit? I mean, that's the point. I don't mean to be the dark cloud of doom by giving you those numbers, but all of us have the ability to go into the app and see who those people are. And if you can't get them all the way to step 4 before July 1st, I would think, is there anything that prevents us from not being able to see them at least progress to the next step, whatever that may be? Seeing the ones become twos, seeing the twos that have overcome their objections now start to do what Patrick Longano calls the bucketing part, the recruiting, finding out what those demographics are. Is there, forgive me if I'm wrong, but doesn't that seem like a ready-made opportunity to try to keep your foot on that gas? Anybody see that differently or have a different interpretation of it?
No, I think if you've got somebody on the committee that is the new club development chair, sub chair, or whatever, that's a tool that they need to be looking at. Is how do I progress these from each of the levels out? I think that the challenge that I'm seeing in our district is you can look around and say, okay, here's a club in that town. They're the only club in that town. It's a good sized town, but it's also a town where people work here and come home, and they've got a traditional lunchtime club. And even when you plant the seed with incoming presidents, hey, consider an evening club, starting an evening club. It doesn't go anywhere. So I think there's, as was mentioned, there's something missing between talking to presidents, PEs, about new club development, what types they are, what resources are available, because we covered all that in pre-pets, maybe not in pets, but we did it definitely during pre-pets. We've got a vibrant club forum, which is way of saying membership, whatever, get together in August, and we're going to go through it again. But it's still not connecting. Somebody's not looking back at their community and saying, we could have an evening club because not everybody can come to lunch. So that's the part that I'm struggling with, is what are we not doing that's connecting that dot for somebody? Are they just afraid of getting started, even though we tell them where to help? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, and that's something that myself and the incoming membership chair are trying to figure out.
Well, it sure seems to me that if you've got someone, whether they're new in the role or they've been in the role before, that just isn't sure where they want to go or how they're able to identify ready-made opportunities, those people weren't forced into downloading the app. I mean, unless what you call Patrick Longano doing as forcing people to do it. But they're in there because there's a certain amount of interest that's already been generated. And if you're not sure where to get started, it might be as easy as that new club development sub chair or the new spark that you identify moving forward goes in there and sees who those people are. They know who to have the conversations with and encourage them to move forward. And don't forget about Grow Rotary. It's a tool that my district has used effectively in the past and not so much at other times. But if you're not sure where clubs aren't, it shows you. And if you've got a district of 1,700 or 2,400 or however many members, you'd like to think that there's somebody out there that's got a connection with somebody else in one of those underserved demographics or population spots. Our district is very rural, but there's still these big 4-lane highways that go north to south and east to west. And if you look at that Grow Rotary tool, you'll see that whole corridor, there might not be a club for 50 miles. Well, somebody's living there. I mean, they have to be living there. Now, whether they're interested in being in Rotary, whether they're interested in just partnering with Rotary, you don't know unless you have those conversations. And that's something that I hear common in a lot of the comments that have been made tonight is we just need to talk to people, whether it's finding out what it is they like so we could do more of it, or finding out from that back row that doesn't speak usually what they don't like so that you can do less of it. You can create ways to do Rotary that doesn't affect the way existing people are doing theirs. It's not a cannibalistic society that we're talking about here. You just gotta do it. I mean, I mentioned in the opening remarks, we're great about talking about it. How good are we about doing it? And if we're not sure, that's what calls like this are for. That's what the map call next Monday is for, is to give you, that inspiration to figure out how you can do it and be more successful at it, perhaps.
But certainly asking, like I suggested that I think Eric's going to do, asking district wide, what might come out of that, like in our district, is all of a sudden Paula has a team of 3 or 4 people, and all of a sudden the job just gets an awful lot easier. And then you can have individual conversations with presidents.
Yeah. Well, being mindful of the time, I see it's about 6 minutes till 6. Anybody else have anything that you'd like to share with the benefit of the group? I've seen maybe some gestures. I don't know if those were intended to be hands up or maybe just fleeting thoughts, but if there's anything that you'd like to share, now's a great time to do it before we draw near the end of our call. Nothing else?
I have one question. Sean has to tell us more about her background.
Tell
Sean,
you more about whose background?
Sean, can you show us your background again and
Oh,
explain?
Sean's background. Sean
Yes.
Braswell. I think he's talking about
There
you.
we go.
She's on fire, man.
Yeah.
She better be. She's going to be governor here in a few weeks.
Does that have a story?
We're gonna bring the sizzle.
Bringing the sizzle. There's the new ICA shirt for this year.
That's a Marshallism.
Yep.
One of many.
Nice. Anything else for the betterment of the group? Then what I will do, as we traditionally do, let me just throw some things out there for you to be mindful of. Somebody give me a thumbs up when you can see that. That would be very helpful. Is that up? Great. Here are the things that are coming up. 6 days from today, again, on Monday, the 11th, the Membership Action Plan MAP webinar. The theme is going to be successful strategies going forward. Again, I suspect you'll see Cindy Kish share with her how to build your clubhouse, which is exactly the kinds of things we're talking about today. There's also going to be a little bit of a success story that tees that up. So it's about what's working, what you hope will work moving forward. And if you don't have a clue what you might want to do, here's a new idea that Cindy has already shared with a lot of you in Richmond that she's going to share with the masses during that call. Week after that, on the 18th, is our monthly membership call in for the DMCs and stakeholders led by our Rotary membership coordinator, Chris Justice. Then as we draw close to Taipei, on Monday the 1st will be the next Zoom formation like we had yesterday. And then, of course, this call in June will be on the 2nd. Let me share just a couple other things for you, and this is something else that we commonly do. Today is May the 5th. In the United States, it's National Astronaut Day. It is National Totally Chipotle Day. I have no idea what that means, but that's what it is. It's also National Hoagie Day, National Cartoonists Day, and most obviously, just given the date, is the day known as Cinco de Mayo, which celebrates Mexican American heritage and pride. So you may or may not choose to have a margarita in honor of that culture and its celebrations. If you do, remember what we said about the Rotary Club of Functional Alcoholism. Make sure you use your Uber account. Be safe. Make good choices, as Julie and I tell the kids all the time. I appreciate you all being here. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. There's a lot of good stuff. We need to encourage more people to take advantage of these opportunities moving forward. But with that said, we're 2 minutes till. I think we're great. I again appreciate you all being here. You've got lots of choices you can make, but you still choose to spend the time having this conversation, and I appreciate that. So with that said, take care. Hope to see you soon, maybe in Taipei. If not, soon after we get back.
Thank you, Sean. Great job.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Good night.